City.com.
South Jersey's home for the Sixers and Flyers.
Yeah!
He scored!
A two-hand jam!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Welcome into a Hump Day Wednesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. I am Josh Hennig, hanging out with you. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. I'll give you the latest on the Phillies in just a moment, but just to let you guys know, tonight we got Emory Hunt. We'll talk some NFL draft with him coming up in about less than 20 minutes from now. Emory is one of the best in the business, and I wanted to get him on before the draft because I always know he knows what's up with these prospects. You guys can also join the conversation at 609-403-0973 is the text board. Your DMs in the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. The Jose Alvarado experience, as I like to call it, was really good in the seventh inning and not starting out so good in the eighth inning because he's already given up a solo home run. It's now a 2-2 tie game for the Phillies and Marlins in the eighth inning. And that's another deep fly ball. At least that one stays in the park. Marsh is able to track that one down. So Alvarado, 2 hitters, 2 deep shots. One goes out of the park and one's a long out. So that's why I call it the Jose Alvarado experience, because you never know what you're getting with this guy. And Alvarado just gives up a big solo home run. So it's a 2-2 tie game for the Phils as Rob Thompson has seen enough. Hopefully the Phillies pull this one out because, well, let's be realistic. We all want the Phillies to do well, at least home. Give the home fans something to cheer for. Come on. Sir Anthony Dominguez is coming into the game. So I'll keep you guys updated on the Phillies game as we go along. Before we get to the Eagles and the NFL stuff, I did want to get to a little NBA because last night was a very interesting experience, I'll call it, to use the word experience again, in relation to how we view teams. I cannot blame anyone in any scenario for looking at last night's games and scratching their head. Because guess what? I would be too. I'd be scratching my head after last night's games. But it's an amazing example for why you can't judge sports purely based on everything that you know. Because sometimes games play out in a way that you don't anticipate them. The Atlanta Hawks had over 20 offensive rebounds yesterday. They had over 60 rebounds in total, and that was the biggest reason why they won the game. It almost looked like the Miami Heat went into the game knowing that they had for lack of a term, a game in hand. And because they went into the game knowing they had a game in hand, in many ways, they treated that game as if it almost didn't matter. And that is the biggest difference between the play-in tournament and a real NBA series. A real NBA series, guys are not just kind of shrugging their shoulders and going through the motions like that. And if they are, it's probably going to be a 4-game sweep. You saw that in the Lakers game, they didn't get a lot of help for LeBron. Listen, the rest of that team, Dennis Schroeder had to come back from basically being injured to help get them across the finish line. It was that crazy. And in a 1-game scenario, which in the playoffs, basketball traditionally is not, in a playoff scenario, you get another shot. You can swing the momentum of a series. You can analyze your opponent and break down, what they did in game 1 versus game 2. You can't do that in playing game. And it was amazing to watch the Lakers struggle to lock it down and watch the Hawks basically outwork the Miami Heat. And I always tell you guys, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, and I will let this point go if the Sixers win an NBA championship. But until that day comes, I will keep harping on the reality that turnovers and rebounding and just doing your job, putting in the work, hustling, these things matter in basketball. I know that we can't always measure these things in terms of stats outside of the pure turnover stat. And I understand that not all turnovers are made the same, especially in a sport like basketball. But last night was an amazing example for why the Sixers have to come out hair on fire and focused. Because if you don't, you will get eaten alive in these playoffs. And the Hawks proved it last night. The Hawks proved last night that if you go out there and put in the work, hustle and grind, it's not like they shot way much better than the Heat. It's not like they had an amazing performance from three-point range. It's not like the Heat had a horrible game on both ends of the floor. It literally came down to hustle plays, doing your job, putting in the work. And for the Sixers, as they get ready for the Nets, do not take this series lightly. Just because you should win this series in 4 or 5 games doesn't mean it's a guarantee that you will. And I think that is something that I am personally going to watch as the playoffs get closer. I want to know who wants it more. Because typically the team that wants it more wins. Josh Hennig here on GameNight 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. See how about a little update on the Phils. They escaped the 8th inning 2-2. Dominguez worked out of a bit of a mess there, but the Phillies head to the bottom of the 8th, tied 2-2. I'll keep you updated on the Phillies game throughout the power hour known as Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget you can chime into the show as well at 609-403-0973. Just like Jeff in Ocean City chimes in, it's without question that Embiid has won the MVP this season. However, if the Sixers don't get out of the second round, nobody will care. Listen, it's a valid point about the Sixers because regular season success has historically not been a good measure for postseason success, especially in the NBA. It's also the same in basketball. I'm not going to, hockey. I'm not going to deny it, but I feel like basketball is probably one of the most extreme examples because it's usually the team with the best player that wins championships. And when I look at the Eastern Conference, and Mike Gill and I talked about this as well on Game Night, or on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. We've talked about the fact that the 3 best players in the Eastern Conference, in whatever order we put them, are Giannis, Embiid, and Tatum. And usually, when you have the best player on the floor, like a LeBron James back in the day with the Cavs, they were beating teams always because they had LeBron and the other team had DeMar DeRozan, right? The other team had Paul Millsap. The other team didn't have a guy on LeBron's level. And for the Sixers, it's not that way with Embiid, but I do think Embiid is an unstoppable force of nature. And as a text from Jeff in Ocean City says, the Sixers have to get out of the second round for people to care. And I made the analogy earlier on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill about how, to me, the reason why people look at the Sixers entering the postseason differently than the Phillies is because it's like if you're a movie person like I am, I love watching a movie, sitting down with a big bag of popcorn and just escaping from the world for a couple hours. It's one of the things I just really enjoy doing that is not sports related. And one of the things about movies is movie trailers can either get you extra excited or extra unenthused about a film. And so to me, the reason why people look at the Phillies World Series run last year and said they were all on board, they were there for the ride, they were excited. And for the Sixers, they're kind of just saying, you got to show me something, is similar to movies. Because if you have a trilogy, and let's say the first movie was good, but the second film was a letdown. Then you see the third movie comes out and you want to get excited, you want to get invested, but you just don't believe in it. That's kind of the Phillies. The Phillies in 2019, they got a hot start. They didn't make the postseason. Last season, they had a horrible start to the year. You had no expectations for them. And then they turn it around and they make a World Series run. They are that movie in the trilogy that you just never expected to be really good, and it ended up outperforming your expectations. On the flip side, the 76ers are the other side of the trilogy conversation. When you have a movie trilogy where the first movie kept you on the edge of your seat and you were ready and you were set to go, and then the second film, they shake up the cast. They change the storyline a little bit. You're not throwing the direction the franchise is going in. And then you see for the third film, they add some big names, some heavy hitters. But you also remember how mediocre that second film was, how weak that second film was, and that you don't want to get your expectations up because you've already been let down. And you watch the movie trailer and you know you're supposed to be excited, but you just can't get behind it because the movie franchise has already let you down before. That's the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are the movie franchise that let you down, and you're not sure if bringing in all the A-list actors is going to pick the film up or not. And the Phillies are the movie that nobody had expectations for. Nobody anticipated being that good. And you go and watch it and you walk out and said, that was the best 2 hours I could have spent today, was watching that film with my popcorn. So I totally get where Philly sports fan is coming from. All right, we'll get more of your text messages a little bit later in the show. Keep them coming in, 609-403-0973. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Don't forget, coming up a little bit later this hour, your final opportunity to qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest today. We will have more opportunities for tomorrow on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, and the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. But the last time today is coming up in about 40 minutes from now. So keep it tuned here to 97.3 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig, hanging out with you on a Wednesday night. Coming up next, NFL Draft Talk. We will break it all down with the best in the business. Emory Hunt from CBS Sports joins me next here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers playoff basketball this Saturday on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Joel with it, turning on Claxton, goes beyond the arc, a fadeaway three, and he made it! It draws oohs and ahs from the crowd.
It's Sixers Nets Game 1 this Saturday. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. It's Sixers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, take me out of my old car. Get me out of this heat. Approve my credit and cut me some slack. I need a dealer that's watching my back. I gotta make sure it's a great deal. All I have now is my trade, 'cause I want No, need a great deal on a brand new car.
Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Black Kia wants to get you roll lease. With 0 down and 2.9% financing for 48 months or no payments for 90 days. On every 2023 Kia Forte and Soul in stock. Kia Niro EV Win, only $299 per month lease with 0 due at signing. So pick any trade to Matt Black Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia with peace of mind. Matt Black Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or lease.
It's gotta be a...
Details or call 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Expires 4/30/23.
Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
And now on Route 37 in Tom's River.
Only 1 week left to file your taxes. But don't worry, Jackson Hewitt is racking up the assists. We guarantee your biggest tax refund and guarantee the accuracy of your return for life. So make a fast break to Jackson Hewitt. Our tax pros will get you filed or get you an extension before the deadline. Beat the clock and the crowds. Come in and file today. When every dollar matters, it matters who does your taxes.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
I never thought I'd care about gardening until I bought a house in the suburbs. But now I find myself in conversations about liquid fertilizer, and I wonder, am I the fertilizer guy now? No way. Everyone knows the ratio between phosphorus and nitrogen, right? Yeah, I'm still totally cool.
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stopped, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right. You don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait. Text PLACE to 200-300.
This is your captain. You may have noticed my new haircut on your way in. Wanted to look my best. Getting the new passport photo taken at Staples. In and out in 10 minutes. And while I'm there, I can grab travel-size body wash. Maybe a shower cap. Don't want to mess up the new do.
Staples has everything you need to travel. 10-minute passport photos, luggage, headphones, even personal travel items. And now at Staples, get 20% off your in-store purchase when you buy any travel service. Get all set to jet and save at Staples. Offer ends 4/29. In-store only. Exclusions apply.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and some nimrod cuts you off. You hit the horn. Jeez, it sounds like a goose in distress. Time to head over to eBay Motors. They have horns for every make and model, not to mention horn pads, steering wheels, wiring, and more. 122 million parts. You can even go for an upgrade. Looks like Mr. Cutoff Man needs a new seat cover. Try eBay Motors, pal. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Did you know that over 40 years ago, John Jenkins Sr. invented the heated seat that football players sit on? Yes, the Jenkins family created a way for football players to weather the extreme cold on frigid game days. Find out why homeowners and business owners count on Jenkins for the quality, service, and reliability you get from a 3-generation family-run company for plumbing, drain cleaning, and leak repairs. For gas furnace, boiler, or hot water heater replacements, call Jenkins at 609-641-6440 and ask about zero interest financing. Online at jenkinsandsons.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We'll get to more of your messages in just a bit. Of course, text board is open as always at 609-403-0973 and your DMs in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank CLIC. Andrew from Northfield, I'll get to your message in just a bit. But right now, I promise we get into the NFL draft, one of the busiest people that I know. This is his time of year. It is analyzing the NFL draft. So I am pleased to welcome back to the show, football game plan, the man, the myth, the legend, Emory Hunt, here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. My friend, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you bringing me on the show as always.
I appreciate you jumping on. This is where I want to start with you. You played running back. You know this position as well as anybody. A lot of people in our area want to know about these running backs because there's two sides to this equation, and I know you know it, but I want to lay it out for the audience out there. You have the one side that says guys like Bijan Robinson, guys like Giddey from Alabama, these are can't miss guys. If you can get them, you should get them. The other side of the coin says, you can get a running back in the mid to late rounds and you'll be fine. Where do you stand with the running back position in this class?
You know, all things can be true. Yeah, you can get a running back in any round, but you also can get the premier guys early. We do this with every other position. You know, if you see a premier quarterback, you take him in round 1. Yeah, you can get you a Tom Brady in round 6, but you take the premier guys in round 1, right? You know, if Tom Brady was thought of as a premier guy, he would have gone in the first round. So it's always funny when they talk about the running back position, you know, as if they are not allowed to be in the first round. You don't wait on a Barry Sanders. You don't wait on a Reggie Bush. You don't wait on an Adrian Peterson because you can get a Lindell White or a Chester Taylor later in the draft. No, you take the game breaker right away. But in the Eagles' case, they do have some options because how healthy is Rashad Penny? You like what you saw from Gainwell, who outperformed Miles Sanders, which is why Miles Sanders is on another football team. Do you have another pressing need elsewhere? Do you need another corner? Do you need another linebacker? Or do you need depth along the offensive line? Can you take a chance at another wide receiver in the first round to give you a third star at the position? So there's some options, but when you think about Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, those two guys are just elite. And yes, it is a very deep running back class, by the way.
So if you are at 10 and Howie Roseman picks up the phone and calls you Emory Hunt, and he says, Emory, what do you think I should be doing here? Should I be getting a running back? Should I be getting a D lineman? You know, what are you telling him about the guys who are going to be available in the first round of this draft?
Well, let's say at 10, because remember, the Eagles have 2 first-round picks, so they have a ton of options. So let's say at 10, you're looking maybe at if Jalen Carter falls, right? Or you're looking at a Jackson Smith and Jigba. If he's there, you're looking at a premier offensive lineman, probably a guard. You know, if you feel like this is where the run of the guards or offensive linemen start, you're looking at a premier corner that's right there. Hey, man, maybe we can get some great depth behind Darius Slay, who's getting up there in age. But we also need someone that could play inside too and get better at a position where we're going to be in 3 defensive back sets all throughout the course of nickel all throughout the course of the season. So we need a corner. Do we take a chance on Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs? What if we don't think Bijan is going to be there? Well, guess what? At 20, you know Jahmyr Gibbs may be there, and you have the luxury of moving up in a draft. I have Jahmyr Gibbs as the number 1 guy, so I probably would think about, okay, teams really want Bijan Robinson, so let me just play this game a little bit and take someone else at 10 and try to either move up from 20 or just take Jahmyr Gibbs at 20. So there's options. Philly, to me, is sitting in the catbird seat because this is a team that doesn't have a lot of holes.
You mentioned you have Gibbs as your number 1. A lot of people have Robinson as their number 1. Now, you're not the first person I heard say that, but you're one of a small group of people. Talk to me about why you have Robinson then at 2 and the Georgia Tech transfer to Alabama at 1.
Well, look at what Robinson does well. He's explosive. He's dynamic. He's productive. He's a great receiver, downfield threat in the passing game. He has the ability to make guys miss. He does a fantastic job in all facets of football. Now, look at Jahmyr Gibbs and watch him do everything I just listed out: faster, more explosive, more elusive, and more athletic. That to me is why I have Gibbs, higher than Bijan Robinson. Both guys are excellent backs. If you look at my grades from the running back position from 2020 to 2023, Gibbs will be number 1, DeAndre Swift will be number 2, and Bijan Robinson will be number 3.
It's crazy then, because I've seen people having Gibbs potentially in the second round in some of these conversations. So why are people underrating him then? Is it just because of his size? Is it because he played at Alabama and people think that anybody could play at Alabama and look good? Like, Why are people not rating this guy higher?
You have to ask them. I would just assume it's because he weighed in at 199 and not 200, as if you can't come back from lunch weighing 205 if you weigh 199, right? So and it's funny because you watch Jahmyr Gibbs play, and when you finally get his height and weight, you just shocked because wow, I didn't know he was that size. If you'd have told me he was 5'11", 210, I'd be like, yeah, that looks about right. He looks 5'11", but you remember he's standing next to Bryce Young, right? So they look about the same size. And, if Bryce Young was listed at 6 feet, then yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs looks 5'11", right? But now we find that Bryce Young is 5'10", so of course Jahmyr Gibbs looks 5'9".
Right.
So to me, it's just I think people need to get out of their heads of positional value and think in terms of impact players. Impact players should go in round 1, and Gibbs and Bijan are both impact players.
We're talking with Emory Hunt about the NFL draft. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at FBall Game Plan for all of his extensive NFL draft and football coverage year round. Emory, I want to flip over to the defense because I've been saying with the Eagles and for a lot of teams, this is a draft that I personally think that you can get some really amazing talent. So talk about after Jalen Carter. Let's assume that he is off the board early on, they figure it out. Maybe it's a team like Seattle or something that goes and grabs him, right? Talk to me about the D linemen that you like who will be available in the first round of this year's draft.
Listen, you look at where they have to get younger and better. They have to get younger at defensive end, guys that can really just bring it off the edge. I'm a big fan of Tui Tuipulotu out of USC. He's a fantastic guy coming off the edge. Brian Bresee, I'm a big fan of. I think he'll be, much better as a rookie than he was last year at Clemson. Now that he's, it will be a year removed from everything that he was dealing with at Clemson. I'm a big fan of what he brings to the table. You look at what you see at linebacker, Deion Henley. Listen, I know they don't take linebackers in the first round, but man, it'd be hard pressed to find somebody that can cover, stop the run, turn the ball over like he can. To me, it reminds me a lot of Fred Warner and what he does out there for San Francisco. So for me, those are defensive guys that I see within the point of attack that could truly help out Philadelphia outside of the obvious in Jalen Carter.
Talk to me about Michigan's Mazi Smith.
I just see someone that's going to be a good rotational piece. I don't see that impact defensive tackle, that pressure guy, that run stuffer. I see someone that could be a solid piece of a rotation. I see him more as a day 2 pick more so than a day 1.
Interesting. I know that a lot of people love him, his physical traits, but you're saying that his performance on the field is more of a guy who's not going to be an elite level tackle. Is that correct?
Yeah. When you see someone that you're when you see guys that are talked about a lot, and that's why I love when I jump in the draft process in January, because I've heard all of the names that people talk about online and all throughout the media, all throughout the season. But when you finally get eyes on them, you're like, wow, and then you start to stack guys as you grade and rank and file. You're like, well, maybe he's not, maybe he's not a elite talent, but he can be a decent rotational piece, good football player. But when we're talking about the draft and you kind of have to slot guys, priority elite first, and then it goes on from there.
All right, let me take what you just said and flip it around. Who is a guy that when you got to really break down the film that maybe that wasn't talked a lot about that got you excited?
Lindsey Scott Jr., the quarterback out of Incarnate Word. Here's the thing. And again, you're going to find this a lot until we get back to normal and regular college football eligibility standards where if you're a senior and you're going. Because we're going to see a lot of guys going to be 25 years old coming into the draft, 24, 25. So he's going to be an older guy. But when you watch him play, he starred at Nichols last year. Cam Ward transferred to Washington State. So then he transferred to Incarnate Word and broke all sorts of records through 60 touchdown passes this past season, 10 rushing touchdowns, and also won the Walter Payton Award, which is the equivalent to the FCS Heisman Trophy. Went to the NFLPA Bowl, did a great job there. And another guy in Todd Centeio, who's actually my QB4, he's someone that plays an efficient game. He's someone that played at Temple, then played at Colorado State, then played at JMU in the Sun Belt Conference, where he won Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and also Sun Belt Conference Newcomer of the Year. And when I was at the Tropical Bowl, he won Tropical Bowl MVP. And then he went out to the NFLPA Bowl along with Lindsey Scott and put together a really good week of work. So, when you watch those guys and you see names on rosters, and then you get there, watch them live, and then you study them, and you like, wow, these dudes are really good. And you just hope they get their opportunity. In fact, Lindsey Scott was taken second overall in February in the USFL draft by the Pittsburgh Maulers. So we'll see if he, and they're kick off their season this weekend, but obviously he's going to give the NFL a shot first. But that's how good of a player he is at Pittsburgh. It's like, hey, we're going to take you in our first round draft, second overall. So when you do decide the NFL is not working out, you already know where you can come and play ball.
Right, you already got a home. We're just waiting for you. If you need it, if you want it, we're here for you. It's kind of like back in the day when guys like Warren Moon had to go to the Canadian Football League before they could get to the NFL. Sometimes it does work out like that. You mentioned the quarterbacks, so you've opened the door here. Talk to me about the top quarterbacks in this draft. I know that everyone and everything is being hyper analyzed about these guys. So who are the top quarterbacks in this draft and why Emory Hunt?
Well, I have them. I see this class like I saw 2017. In 2017, I had my top three guys with the same grade: Watson, Mahomes, and Deshaun Kaiser in that order. And then my QB4 was Gerard Evans, who didn't get an opportunity. My QB5 was PJ Walker, who had to go to the XFL, win MVP to get an NFL shot. And I wasn't high on Trubisky at all. I think he was like my QB 10 or 11. This year,
I remember you did not like Trubisky at all.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. Like, he came out of nowhere. Like, you watched Lamar Jackson play Deshaun Watson, and you watched that game and decided, yeah, I'm gonna get Mr. Trubisky. Like, it didn't make sense. So in this one, in this year, my top three in order with the same grade. I have the same grade on these three guys: Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. And then I have Tyson Teo as QB4, Jaron Hall as QB5, and Hendon Hooker as QB6. And Will Levis is my QB18. He's the Trubisky in this draft class, in my opinion. And so people hear 18 and think, wow, like, you hate him. Like, nah, when you grade so many prospects like I do, and you grade so many quarterbacks, you just got to be honest with yourself and honest with what you see on film and just stack guys where they fall. So for me, he is the Trubisky in this class, and he's along the lines of what you would consider a day 2, day 3 type talent. Someone that is probably, a solid QB2, or if he's going to be a borderline starter for you, you're going to always be looking for someone behind him.
Yeah, maybe I'm nuts, but I really like Hendon Hooker a lot. I just like his poise and his arm personally. But back to the top three. So if you're the Carolina Panthers, who should they take at 1 overall? Because you don't trade up to number 1 overall to take an offensive lineman in this situation. You're going up to get that quarterback. Well,
for me, selfishly, I like all three. So if you want to have this guy over this guy, that's fine. You're not going to get an argument. But for selfish reasons, I would like to see CJ Stroud go to Carolina, Bryce Young go to Houston, and Anthony Richardson go to Indianapolis, because I think those are perfect fits for all three guys for three different reasons. For Stroud, it's mostly because of he plays like the quarterbacks that are going to be coaching him. He plays like a Frank Wright. He's a pocket guy. Josh McCown, although a little bit more athletic, was playing mostly from the pocket. That's CJ Stroud. Jim Caldwell coached a lot of pocket guys. So that's a good fit for CJ Stroud, in my opinion. Bryce Young adds the dynamic ability, kind of like what Houston lost when they traded away Deshaun Watson. So he brings that element of the magic of creating out of nothing. And Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen just left Philly with Jalen Hurts. Now you get him an athletic quarterback like Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson, paired up with a great running back in Jonathan Taylor behind a great offensive line with a lot of good weapons in place in the passing game. It could look a lot like what we saw in Philly. So for me, I think those three fits for those three players would be the ideal matches.
I like you putting Richardson with the Colts because I know they just signed Minshew this offseason. And I know you, people can't see you waved off Minshew. But hear me out for a second. I do think that Richardson, personally, I think he needs a little bit of grooming. I think he needs a little, development, because I remember, and I know you do too, when Mahomes came out of college, people were ripping him for his mechanics. And once he got that line, well, now he's the best quarterback in the league. I think Richardson still has a little bit to learn. Is that fair of me to say?
Here's the thing. They wasn't going to bench Alex Smith. Just like they wasn't going to take Brett Favre off the field for a rookie Aaron Rodgers. So it's not necessarily, you don't learn anything by sitting on the side. Especially if you're sitting behind somebody you're better than. Richardson is already better than Gardner Minshew, so he's not learning anything. And one of the biggest knocks for Richardson is experience. So sitting on the side, you still won't get that. So you got to play him. And the good part of the reason why I like the fit for Indy for him is because they could lean in on that run game, because now you can kind of slow play it like the Eagles did in 2021 with Jalen Hurts. They slow played it, allowed him to take his timely shots deeper down the field, throw when you need to. Even though they threw a lot, and he was competent throwing the football. The numbers may not show, but I think Anthony Richardson can be what Jalen Hurts was in 2021 for this team as a rookie because of his athleticism and ability to make things happen as a +1 in the run game. He has a beautiful deep arm with velocity. He has a stronger arm than Jalen Hurts, and I think his deep ball is a little bit better than Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has gotten better throwing the deep ball. But I think when you look at Richardson, that's probably his best throw, throwing it deeper down the field. He's going to actually have receivers that can catch the ball. I think all three of those guys can really hit the ground running.
Talk with Emory Hunt here. You can follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan about the NFL draft. A couple more before I let you go, Emory. I want to throw a couple names at you, and I just want you to tell the audience what you feel about these guys. First of all, Miles Murphy from Clemson.
I think he's a good player. They kind of have a DN factory, at Clemson. Going back to the late great Gaines Adams, it seems like every year we're looking at a Clemson defensive end. So I think he's a solid player. I don't think he's a game changer, but that's I'll be willing to be wrong on that if that turns out to be the case. But I think he's a solid. He's not Vic Beasley, but he's not and he's not Cleveland Ferrell. I think he's better than those two guys, but I think he's kind of like a good player and not a difference maker.
Talk to me about Lucas Van Ness, a guy who didn't even start games at Iowa, and now he's projected as a first-round pick.
Yeah, he's someone that, I think he'll be, obviously he's going to have to be better than he was in college. But I think he's more of a 7 technique as opposed to kicking him down inside or even having him play a 5. I think you have to kind of have him as a 9 technique and just get up the field and just rush and let him figure it out that way. He's someone that's going to get drafted high, but he probably should start off as a rotational rusher as opposed to being a down and down out guy, because sometimes it can get ugly in the run game.
Yeah, maybe the Eagles make sense for him because the Eagles rotate their entire line every 2 downs, it seems like. One more before I ask you before I let you go, because he's a guy that a lot of people keep mentioning through this process. That's Northwestern's Peter Skronsky.
Good offensive lineman, and I say offensive lineman because some people see him as a guard, some people see him as a tackle. Regardless, you want the talent. It's kind of like Landon Dickerson. Some saw him as a guard, some saw him as a center. Who cares? Get him on your offensive line and figure it out. Let him play himself out of the tackle position before you move him to guard. Don't say no before you even see, don't even judge the movie without seeing the full film, right? And so I think that's where Skronsky is going to find himself. I like the player. I like the talent, and I would want the talent on the offensive line, regardless if he ends up at tackle or guard.
There you have it. He is the best in the business, in my opinion. Emory Hunt, F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage of the NFL draft and, of course, on the YouTube channel, Football Game Plan as well. And he's all over the place. I mean, you were just in Vegas about an hour ago. Now you're jumping on here. So I appreciate you working me in the schedule. The irony is that you were on with Q out there in Vegas, and he's on every Friday with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here. So it's like this full-blown symmetry going on around here.
Hey, man, listen, and for the fans and listeners out there, get your copy of the draft guide, footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide. Over 1,000 individual scouting reports. Every person in the guide has a full page scouting report. So yes, it's over 1,065 pages. it comes in handy not only for the draft, through the draft, preseason, training camp, regular season. It helps you become a better fan. It helps you be a little bit more knowledgeable about the players that are entering the league across the league. So get your hands on your copy today. It's a full color PDF at footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide, the best draft guide in existence, and it's the industry standard.
And it's from Emory Hunt. He joined us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. My friend, always appreciate you jumping on, making time in your busy schedule. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you for having me on.
And of course, our conversation with Emory Hunt being brought to you by Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, the plumbing guy. Just call 609-641-6440. From new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, leak repairs, drain cleaning services, whatever you need, Jenkins has got you covered. 609-641-6440 and online at jenkinsandsons.com. And like I said, Emory's the best. I mean, this guy saw Jalen Hurts from a mile away. He called Trubisky failing from day one. He is someone who knows the draft in and out. So he's a guy that I always rely on. I thought two things he said were very interesting. He likes Gibby from Alabama. And he said, look, the size doesn't matter if you're a good football player. And I'm starting to get the feeling that for the Eagles, they may be able to get some of these really talented players dropping because of these measurable issues. So there's a chance that you might be able to get a guy like Gibby from Alabama at maybe 30th overall or in the second round. And as he put it, you might be able to get the better running back than Robinson in that situation, even though Robinson is getting all the hype. The other thing he mentioned about Skronsky at the end there, I thought was very curious to me. He said, I don't care how you want to label him. If you can get him, you get him. And he made the comparison to Landon Dickerson. Now, remember, Dickerson dropped because of injury issues. He didn't drop because people didn't know what position to put him at. So for him to put Dickerson and Skronsky on that same parallel level is interesting to me, because I remember guys like Brian Baldinger, they were saying that they thought Dickerson was the best O-lineman in the draft. And it wasn't just Baldy. It was a lot of people who thought Dickerson, if he was healthy, would have been a top 10 pick. Emory is saying Skronsky's a similar guy, that just draft him and put him somewhere on the line. And maybe that's part of the reason why people keep projecting Skronsky to the Eagles in these mock drafts, because they're saying the Eagles are the kind of team that just takes dudes like that and makes them elite. Now, as I've said before, I personally wouldn't do it because I feel like you might be able to get an offensive lineman at different points in the draft. The Eagles have shown that in the past, but I trust Emory's analysis. And if he's telling me that a guy like Skronsky is someone that you just take and put him on the line, if you look at a guy like Gibby from Alabama and say, look, I would take this guy ahead of Robinson, I'm not going to sit here and take Emory's analysis out of the conversation, because like I said, he's been right about so many guys, it's ridiculous. So again, F-Ball Game Plan is where you give him a follow on Twitter, footballgameplan.com. Of course, he's on CBS Sports all over the place throughout the year. That's why I tried to get him on this week, because he's not going to be available in the next 2 weeks. All right, back to the text board on the other side, 609-403-0973. And you got to DM the show through 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle.
Tonight on ESPN Radio, the NBA postseason is here, and we kick it off with a play-in tournament doubleheader. First in Toronto, the Raptors welcome the Chicago Bulls. Then we head to New Orleans, where the Pelicans face the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Bulls at the Raptors, followed by the Pelicans and Thunder. Presented by Indeed.
Listen to the NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 p.m.
At Ocean First Bank, our first thought is you. We put you first in all we do. Community banking for a century. We treat you like your family. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank.
Want a great rate? Check out our new First Wave Money Market account. The more you deposit, the more interest you earn. And even better, there are no term commitments. Visit oceanfirst.com for complete details, including how to get a 4.25% APY.
Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Certain rules and restrictions apply. Member FDIC.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or play. Stop, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right, you don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait, text PLACE to 200-300.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
I never thought I'd care about gardening until I bought a house in the suburbs. But now I find myself in conversations about liquid fertilizer, and I wonder, am I the fertilizer guy now? No way. Everyone knows the ratio between phosphorus and nitrogen, right? Yeah, I'm still totally cool.
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and some Nimrod cuts you off. You hit the horn. Jeez, it sounds like a goose in distress. Time to head over to eBay Motors. They have horns for every make and model, not to mention horn pads, steering wheels, wiring, and more. 122 million parts. You can even go for an upgrade. It looks like Mr. Cutoff Man needs a new seat cover. Try eBay Motors, pal. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
We are here with Dr. Scott Hernberg, Medical Director and founder of Tomorrow's Wellness Center in Northfield, one of our 97.3 ESPN industry aces. Dr. Hernberg, tell us about Tomorrow's Wellness Center.
We offer the most advanced technology and evidence-based practices in a holistic and integrative manner to provide optimal health and wellness. We strive passionately to make folks look and feel their best.
You treat ED. How common is ED?
Erectile dysfunction is a very common disorder, particularly as men begin to age. Typically, about 40% of men experience some form of erectile dysfunction.
What does Tomorrow's Wellness Center do for ED?
We use a protocol called the Gainswave therapy. What this therapy involves is low-intensity shock waves that are essentially sound waves. It's natural, essentially painless procedure used to improve the blood flow as well as to improve the sensitivity.
Dr. Scott Hernberg from Tomorrow's Wellness Center in Northfield. You can find out more at tomorrowswellnesscenter.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the app.
I want to talk about the Power Hour with your messages coming into the show here on ESPN. Always good to have Emory Hunt on the show. We're going to try to get more into the NFL draft as the weeks progress. It's a wonderful time of year with the Phillies baseball going on. We'll get to the Phillies in just a moment. NFL draft, Sixers in the postseason. It's a wild time of year. It's a good thing the Flyers season ends tomorrow night. That way I don't have to hear up the Flyers again for a few months. Get away from that, is escape from that. Phillies, by the way, lost in extra innings, 3-2. It really felt like in that game, watching it here in the studio, that the Phillies just felt like they never really found their groove. for a team that exploded for all those runs on Monday, the last two games, it's like offensively they never found a rhythm. So I think it's frustrating to say the least. I'll just put it that way. It's we'll get more into the Phillies as the weeks progress, but I've told you guys before, I'll say it again. I'm not worried about the team early on because I know that historically when the Phillies start out hot, those are the seasons they struggle down the stretch. It's the season they start out like this that they find their way. You just have to wonder how much are these guys pressing, knowing that there's no Hoskins. Harper is getting close to coming back, but he's not there yet. No Ranger Suarez. How much are these guys going out there and maybe not just relaxing and letting the game come to them, and they're trying to take over the game at times? I just have to wonder that as I watch this team. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973, Andrew in Northfield chimes in and says, whose legacy do you think this year's playoff success or lack thereof will leave a greater impact on, Embiid or Harden? Andrew, it's an interesting question because when I look at Embiid, I don't see a guy whose career has been fully written. I think that if he wins MVP, but the Sixers don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think it depends on how he performs. There's a possibility that Embiid can go out and score 30 points a game, get 10 rebounds a game in the playoffs, and they not get to the Eastern Conference Finals. On the flip side, I would say that if James Harden doesn't go out there and average, let's say, 20 points and 11 assists a game, the Sixers probably lose. Here's the thing with legacy. It's hard to write players' legacy until they're really in the twilight. Because look what happened with Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki got to the end of his career in those last several years, and people made the assumption that, well, Dirk just can't win a championship. Dirk's not good enough to win it all. And then all of a sudden, the Mavs upset the Miami Heat and win the NBA championship. So I think Embiid is too early in his career for me to really paint too heavy the legacy narrative. Now, if you want to go to Harden and say, wait, legacy, I think that for Harden, if he can play at the level he has shown he can play at this year, being the league leader in assists per game, and in some of his best games, he'll have like 12 assists and only 2 turnovers. If he can do that consistently for 3 out of, let's say he does that in a 7-game series, he does that 3 games every series, you're probably winning all 3 of those games, which means you're in a position to win every single series. So I would say the legacy conversation is more on Harden because of how further along he is in his career than Embiid is. And realistically, Harden was brought here to help you get to a championship. He was not brought here to just be a regular season stats guy. So if Harden has a good postseason where he keeps the turnovers low, the assists high, they're going to win. But if he doesn't do that, I guarantee you he's going to be looked at differently moving forward. All right, that sounder right there means it's your final opportunity to qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest today. All you have to do is text in to call 609-573-3776. Man, what am I talking about? 609-573-3776 is the call-in line. Call number 7, you will qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest. As qualifier, you must be present at Maynard's in Margate on Thursday, April 27th, the day of the NFL Draft. Caller number 7, 609-573-3776, and you will have the chance to qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest. Again, you must be present Thursday, April 27th, Maynard's in Margate. Caller 7, 609-573-3776. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night, everybody.
Here's what you missed on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, unquestionably right now top 5 to 6 quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson is not that. Great player, been a great
Man,
player.
they're
He hasn't been
stupid.
that.
And those
The
people,
media-
Jeremy, are going to be fired. They're going to be fired. Whoever thinks that he's not one of them top quarterbacks, they're going to get fired.
I'm talking like top 5 to 6. Teams don't see him the way the media does. It's just the way that now they see him as top 10, top 11.
And teams are stupid.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN. Brought to you by
The Gallery Bar Book and Games in Ocean Casino Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on a parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the Gallery. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.